Hello Build Crash Course and welcome to the safety section of this course. In this video I'm going to talk about some safety for the tools that you will most likely encounter on a first robotics team. Now we're going to start with the real simple grunt work tools. For example, the hammer or screwdriver, Allen keys, and wrench. You want to use common sense. That is the main thing with these. If you don't use common sense, you're going to get yourself into situations where you're going to jab yourself with a screwdriver, for example. So you'd want to think about what you're doing. For example, if you're screwing something into a board with just a screwdriver like so, you don't want to be putting force on an angle, because it might slip out just like that, and that might slip into your hand instead of onto the table like it just did. Something to note with screwdrivers is that they are color-coded in many brands. For example, this is a Robertson, which means it has a square on the head, and this is a green Robertson. And someone on the team might ask you to grab a green Robertson. And you can see another brand here has the same green handle for the same tip. So a green Robertson means this size with this head. So you know exactly what tool to get. Next up, we've got the helper outers of the drill and the impact driver. Now there is a difference. Drills are best for actually putting holes in things with drill bits, whereas impact drivers here are better for actually putting the screws or bolts into your material. There are two big things you want to look out for when working with drills and drivers. The first thing is that they are spinning. So you don't want to have any loose strings or hair that will get caught in there, because that will be painful and quite dangerous. A second thing is that they do also have kickback. You may notice this when you are, especially with the impact driver, because it does have a bit more force to it. When you're putting something in, if you hit a point with a bit more resistance, it'll jerk to the side. So it generally moves like this when you're getting kickback. So that can really hurt your wrist. So you gotta watch out for that when you're using drills and impact drivers. And the best way to control this is by using two hands when you're using it. So you want to put one hand here, and you can put a second hand on top. This works especially well with the drills, because you'll want to be pushing into your material a little bit, not too much, but you can hold it here and here just to give some extra support. One thing to note about drills is that if your drill bit is dull, you will have a bit of difficulties going through your material, and a dull blade is not a good thing. It can actually be more dangerous to have a dull blade than a sharp one. With impact drivers, there's a similar thing with the bits. You don't want to have a stripped bit. So for example, you might have a Robertson, but the corners of the square are kind of rubbed off, so it makes it a bit more circular, and then your tool will not work well. So make sure that everything on your tool looks right. If there's anything that looks kind of sketchy, maybe don't use it. Let your mentor or coach know and figure out what the problem is. Next up on our chopping block is a hyped up hair dryer, the heat gun. You will be using this guy if you are going to be using plastics such as Lexan that can be shaped and you want to make a custom made piece. They can be a really useful tool, but they are of course dangerous. You can see on this one, it even tells you it gets up to 500 degrees Celsius, and that is a skin melting temperature. So you never want to put your hands in front of these while they're on, and they warm up very quickly. One thing to look at while we have something that's corded here is the condition of the cord itself. Now this one has a little connector here right at the base, and that keeps it all nice and tidy, keeps it together. And if we look at the cord all throughout, it's nice and clean. It's wrapped up with the rubber, and it doesn't have any cracks or any wires showing. One thing to note, this one does not have a ground, which is that third piece on plugs that you'll see sometimes. And it is good to have a ground on things. You don't get electrocuted quite as much. So I wanted to bring out a nice, dangerous one here just to show you what a bad cord looks like. Now this one's had its time, it's been through the ringer, and it didn't have such a great time on the other side. So right off the bat we see it has a ground. Isn't that awesome? Right here we've got the wires all exposed and they're not covered by insulation. So if we go through one more layer of rubber here, we can shock ourselves quite easily. Now if we keep going down, we see, I think a mouse has been at this one, so it has also been compromised there. And other than that, they do both have a stand here at the back. This one has it coming off. It's also breaking apart. I would advise no one to use this tool here. You will certainly perish. So heat guns are pretty docile. Just don't put your hand in front of them. Don't test their temperature. And if you have anything that's corded, which your heat gun probably will be, make sure you inspect the cord, make sure it doesn't have any imperfections on it. Another heat tool is the soldering iron, and you'll use this if you're on the electrical team. You might use it a bit on build, and these also heat up quite quickly, like the heat gun, and they get very, very hot at the tip. And there are some care instructions and guides for soldering itself, but for the safety of this, one thing that you can use to avoid dropping things and keep yourself all organized are something called helping hands. Basically what it does is it's got two little alligator clips on it, and it can hold your material for you so that you can concentrate on getting the solder and the soldering iron where they need to be without any complications.